So, can you get fired from comics? Well, not really. Comics is a very big thing. If you get removed from your job in one place, it's pretty easy to get a job in another place. Well, I say pretty easy too quickly, but the answer is no, you can't exactly get fired, but you can get something that feels and smells a lot like blacklisted, except it's a little bit more insidious than that. I'm going to try and lay this out because this is one of those discussions that's based on semantics, but those semantics are important. So let me try and get into it from my perspective. Hey everybody, this is Perch. What are we talking about? We're talking about getting fired. Nobody likes to get fired. Being removed from your job is traumatic. It's sometimes your own doing. You did something that got you fired. Sometimes it's a result of politics or management changes that came in and people want to bring in their boys or their girls or whatever it happened to be, and you get caught up in that. In fact, most of the time it's that. It's that people are getting caught up in circumstances outside of their control. It would actually be a lot cleaner in companies if people got fired for doing something wrong, if they actually made a mistake and got fired. But more often than not, it's politics. It's somebody is trying to do something in some area and you get caught in the middle. That's the most common scenario of quote unquote getting fired. um, but in comics it's a little bit more complicated than that, because the reality is people don't get fired too often. What is more likely to have happen is that people get caught up in politics, one direction or another, and or just people don't work with them anymore. That's the other common scenario that goes on. Um, in a lot of cases, what happens is that editors pick the people they want for their projects. So an editor, for example, will solicit friends or people they've worked with in the past or people whose projects have gone well, and they'll give them more work. They'll employ them for another job. That sounds straightforward, right? It is and it isn't. So the straightforward part of it is, an editor is really designed to be somebody who's going to bring a collection of people into a project and is going to have to run that project successfully. So of course they're going to turn to people in their network who have delivered successfully for them before. That shouldn't be very surprising to people, and it shouldn't be a matter of controversy. But where the controversy does come in is that when you go to pick your friends or you go to pick people that have succeeded for you in the past, those aren't always the people who are actually successful for the comic. There's many different metrics of success. I talked to some editors once who said, well, everybody thinks about sales, but the reality is there's a lot more to it than just quote unquote sales. There's who can deliver on time, who can meet the deadline, who can come in on budget. There's a lot of other aspects to the business than just sales. So at times, people have said, hey, why do comic? Well, I'll give you a perfect example. Mark Waid is somebody who certainly has, a reputation positively and negatively throughout comics. Depending on who you are, you love him or you hate him, or maybe you don't know any of the drama and you just think of him as the guy who did Kingdom Come, and now what's he doing? That's where a lot of comic readers sit. But Mark Waid had a reputation within comic publishers of being on time, that he would deliver his scripts on time, he could meet a deadline. He was a very safe pick in the sense that he would deliver scripts and the scripts would come in and they would be clean and the creators could work on them, and he would do the necessary things to get editorial approval. And so if you were doing a comic, he was a safe bet to get the comic produced and out successfully. A lot of fans, particularly the ones on the internet who are tied up into the other parts of the Mark Waid kind of drama, they don't care about that part. They're more mentally along the lines of, hey, what happened here with this these other things. There's plenty of videos on that. You all know what I'm talking about. You can go in there. What I'm trying to prove the point is getting a job is based around a number of different metrics, not all of which are customer facing sales or anything else. But the other hand of that is if you piss off an editor or for whatever reason, and here's where it's not fair. Editors are not infallible. Comic companies are not infallible. Let's say you go to a convention and you just, for whatever reason, you get on somebody's bad side, maybe intentionally, maybe you got drunk and vomited on them in a party. That has happened. Or maybe a editor made a pass at you, male or female, and you didn't, you're like, I don't feel like a hookup tonight. And then suddenly you find that you're just not being picked for as many projects, that editor is just gonna, not calling you up when there's something new to do. That's why comics is so precarious of a position in a lot of cases, because people do not have, in most cases, they do not have full-time gigs. They're contractors, they're independent contributors. They're people who are picked gig by gig. And so you can find your fates rising very, very suddenly. There's a lot of independent artists, there's a lot of writers who, there's been videos on this, like this person was a nobody, and then suddenly they're picked for, by 3 or 4 companies to do a project. This is the Mags Passaggio complaint that a lot of people have, is that, she didn't really sell that much, but suddenly, Marvel, DC, Image, lots of people are doing books with her. Well, part of that is because simply it's very easy as an independent contractor that once you get to know the right people, once you hustle your own portfolio, your stack, once you, create a reputation amongst yourself of I work for, this rate. I am, you give me a job, I will deliver it in a week. You will get more work. And so it's easy. I don't want to say easy because, easy in air quotes. It's very possible to run the table in a very short amount of time. Comic books as a business is one of those things where you can spend a very long time getting, published somewhere, getting your foot in the door. But once you get in the foot in the door, suddenly within 3 years, you can be one of the top writers, top contributors to that company. An example might be Donny Cates. Donny Cates was writing for Bleeding Cool, 4 or 5 years ago. I don't know if that timeline is exactly right, but not many years ago. And now he's kind of one of Marvel's, golden boys. He's one of the kind of key writers, and a lot of people are talking about, what will Donny Cates accept next? Not will he get picked to do something? It's like, will Donny Cates be the flagship writer for Marvel? He could be. It's weird to think about that, basically, when Fear itself was coming out in the comic shops, Donny Cates was, kind of nowhere to be seen. He hadn't even gotten a Bleeding Cool job yet. You guys remember Fear itself, right? Well, a lot of people don't. But anyway, that's the kind of point, is that your fates can rise quickly. But by the same token, your fates can drop quickly too. Remember that example? You could get on the wrong side of an editor. They just don't call you for work. And editors often, keep connected to each other. That's the network that does not get a lot of airplay in videos and controversies and other things. But a lot of the editors amongst many companies, Marvel, DC, etc., they keep a network amongst themselves. And they will certainly recommend people to each other. It's why you see such crossover at times. And you will see, they will certainly tell stories. And when I say tell stories, they'll say, I had a bad experience with this person. Now, remember, if you're an editor and you're managing multiple books, one, you probably don't have a lot of time. It's not like you're just sitting around like, I think I'll go on a talent search this week. You don't have that ability. You're not getting paid a massive sum of money either. A lot of editors are paid very, very little. And so they're trying to manage what is a slate of books, probably more than they can handle, with a variety of creators, many of whom are, I don't want to say not professional, because many are professional, but just a variety of working styles. It's not like an office where you show up, you do your job this way, you fill out the form this way, you have this schedule, this deadline, and then you're judged and you go on. You must juggle with lots of different creators, different styles. This editor will be late by a day, which is going to cause a domino effect to this penciler, which then means you have to line up the colorist. And you've double booked the colorist here and here, so now you've got a conflict. You got to find somebody else. This is kind of what your daily life is like. And so if you are in that mode and one of your editor peers says, hey, this creator over here, they're unreliable. They're late on scripts. They give me a bad feeling. I was sitting at a table having drinks down at San Diego Comic-Con with 3 editors. And it was an innocuous conversation. But in the middle of it, one of the editors said to the other, I don't really like that penciler. There's nothing I can put my finger on. Just I get kind of a bad feeling from that penciler. Oh, really? Said the other editor. And the third one goes, yeah, I've kind of had the same vibe. I don't know. And then that's it. That was it. Yet, over the next 6 months, that penciler got a lot less work. That's how it goes. If you're not a superstar, meaning the fans and other people are clamoring for you, it's very hard. I mean, you if you're in that middle tier where you've got a bit of a reputation, you're not an unknown, but you're not, so big and so powerful that people will, loudly kind of get you work for you. You're very much at the whim and the mercy of the editor. And so that's the idea. Certainly, people get fired. Dan Didio gets fired. Bob Harris at times, as Jim Shooter. Lots of people get removed from their jobs, particularly at that senior management level. But generally, as a creator, you don't exactly get fired. You just kind of get, for lack of a better word, kind of whispered out. You get kind of just subtly, slowly, gravity just pulls you out. And when that happens to you, it's extremely hard to prevent it. And that's the dangerous part. When you get fired, you have a chance generally to tell your story, or you can go to another job and you can say, here's what happened. Here's, what they did. Or maybe it doesn't come up at all. When it's very definitive, it's very easy to present your case. When it's kind of this invisible whisper network, if you will, and that makes it sound more sinister. It is. It's not like these people are all gossiping behind your back, although many times they are. It's more just, very subtle gravity of, I'm not going to pick this person for a project. Well, why not? I just, the style doesn't really work for what I'm trying to do, or this person was just a little bit late, or I wasn't 100% happy with the pages that came in. Most of the time, the other editors or the peers do not ask for specifics. They don't say, oh, really? You didn't like, what was it about the pages you didn't like? Or how late was it? Or, what was the hiccup that happened with the script and the artist? What was the problem? They're confident and comfortable with just, I didn't really like this person. And you get 3 or 4 people all kind of saying that about you. And in many cases, it could be a single event. This is one of the things that happened at DC, of course, in the Superman office, was you had a single event happen. I'm using this as an example. A lot of things happen in his office. A lot of it is gossip and hearsay, and it's tough to wade into. One day I will, but I should have used a different example here. But this was a real life thing that a single event happened to one person, one creator, and the editor at the Superman office at the time kind of went I don't really like this person. And pretty soon that story of, I don't really like this person, unreliable, got passed around all over the place. And before they knew it, they weren't getting work. It can happen that quickly, and it's very, very hard to salvage your reputation. You have to kind of show up and go, hey, because you're fighting smoke. You're not. It's not like you're fighting. Hey, some people said I was late on my pages. It's not true. Here's what I actually do, and here's proof that I definitely will not be late in the future. You don't have that opportunity to defend yourself. You're just kind of at the mercy of trying to fight vapor. And in many cases, that's why creators will suddenly appear and why they will suddenly vanish. Much about this. So, can people get fired? Yes. Do people usually get fired? No. They just get kind of vanished out, and then they have to do something else. That's generally the way it goes, and it's why, by the way, a lot of comic creators can be kind of paranoid about where they sit in the world, and it's why people jealously and aggressively defend their position. It's why when a number of comic creators or editors or other people kind of get after somebody and they don't like them, they make some public statements about it. That's why so many comic creators fall into line and will say the same thing. They don't want to suddenly find themselves on the wrong end and not get work. It's a dangerous place to be. But that's the basics of it. Do you have any questions about this? Thoughts? Have you observed any of this stuff in action? Leave a comment below. Subscribe if you don't mind. If you're new to the channel, would love to have you as a subscriber. Follow me on Twitter or Facebook at Comic Perch, and thanks for listening.